Hello students, I am Dr. Pooja Mehta from Inder Kumar Gujral, Punjab Technical University, Kapurthala, Punjab. Attitude has been widely studied in organizational behavior because it is considered as an important variable of human behavior. Attitude has a psychological attribute that shapes human behavior. Various work-related attitudes of an individual tend to influence his job-related behaviors, such as absenteeism, performance, turnover, and organizational citizenship behavior. Attitudes are evaluative statements, which are very frequently used to describe people, events, and objects. These statements can be either favorable or unfavorable. Attitude reflect one's feelings towards particular object, event, or person. For example, when I say, I like this pen, with the help of this statement, I am expressing my favorable attitude towards the pen. Therefore, we can say that attitude is a bent of mind or predisposition towards certain actions. It shows persistent tendency of an individual to act or to behave in a particular manner towards some object. Attitude can be understood with the help of definitions more clearly. The first definition of attitude, which we are going to discuss, is given by G.W. Wellput. Attitude is a mental or neural state of readiness, organized through experience, exerting a directive or dynamic influence upon the individual's response to all objects and situations with which it is related. The second definition of attitude says that attitude is an enduring organization of motivational, emotional, perceptual, and cognitive processes with respect to some aspect of the individual's world. Another definition given by Katz and Scotland says that attitude is a tendency or predisposition to evaluate an object or symbol of that object in a certain way. After discussing the definitions of the attitude, we can conclude that attitude can be regarded as beliefs, feelings, and action tendencies of an individual or group of individuals towards objects, ideas, and people. Quite often, persons and objects or ideas become associated in the minds of individuals, and as a result, attitude becomes multidimensional and complex. Now we will discuss nature of attitude. Attitudes are evaluative statements which can either be favorable or unfavorable. Attitude refers to the feeling or belief of individuals or groups of individuals. The feelings and beliefs are often directed towards objects, people, events, or ideas. For example, when somebody says, I like my job, it shows his positive attitude towards his job. Attitudes result in the behavior or actions of people. Attitude is a psychological phenomena which cannot be observed directly. However, it can be noticed indirectly by noticing behavior of an individual. For example, if a person is very regular on the job and performs extremely well on the job, we can judge that he likes the job. Attitudes are acquired over a period of time. The process of attitude formation starts from the childhood stage of an individual and it continues through the lifetime. Attitude is an enduring characteristic of an individual's behavior, which is difficult to change. Every person, irrespective of his status and intelligence, hold attitudes. Now we will discuss components of attitude. Attitude is comprised of three components: cognitive or informational component, affective or emotional component, and behavioral component. We will discuss these components one by one in detail. Cognitive or informational component. This component of attitude is the description of beliefs and ideas about other persons, objects, or events. This component describes the information an individual has towards others, no matter whether this information is correct or wrong. For example, a person who is in search of a new job may acquire information from his own sources that salary package and chances of promotion in this organization are very favorable. In reality, this information may or may not be correct, but the person will use this information to develop his feelings or action tendencies. Second component of attitude is affective or emotional component. The component reflects the emotions or feelings of an individual towards a person or towards an object or event. The feelings or emotions can either be positive or negative. The feelings can be favorable or unfavorable. For example, I like this job. This statement reflects a person's positive feelings for the job. Third component of the attitude is behavioral component. This component includes the behavioral tendencies or intentions of an individual to act in a particular manner towards an object, event, or a person. For example, I am going to join this job. This statement reflects a person's intentions to act in a particular manner. These three components of attitude are very important to study in order to understand the relationship between attitude and behavior. The components are also very important to understand the complexity of the relationship between attitude and behavior. These three components are very closely related to each other, specifically cognitive component and affective component. Out of the three components, only behavioral component can be observed directly, whereas the other two components can only be inferred but cannot be observed directly. Dear students, please look at the exhibit given here very carefully. The exhibit explains the formation of attitude with the help of the functions of attitude. Cognitive or evaluative function, affective or emotional function, and behavioral function, they together form attitude of a person towards an object, an event, or another person. In this exhibit, an individual's attitude towards the job has been explained. Cognitive component or informational component says that salary package and chances of promotion are very favorable for this job. Affective component says that the feelings of the individual are positive and therefore he expresses his feelings as I like this job. Behavioral component of the individual states that I am going to join this job. These are action tendencies. Therefore, the positive information, positive feelings, and positive behavioral tendencies together form positive attitude towards the job. Dear students, from an organizational point of view, behavioral component of attitude is particularly very important to understand the reasons of behavior of employees. For example, if in an organization, workers of a union believe that Top management is using tactics to delay the table discussion to be held between workers and management in order to settle down new terms and conditions of employment. In such a case, it becomes very important for the management to study how this attitude among the workers has been developed and what can be done to change the same. Functions of attitude. Why do people develop attitude towards individuals or objects? Why do people resist changing their attitude? This is because attitude helps an individual to respond towards an individual or object in a meaningful way. Specifically, attitude serves four important functions for an individual's behavior. These functions are utilitarian function, ego defensive function, value expressive function, and knowledge function. First function which is served by an individual's attitude is utilitarian function. Individuals may develop attitude because sometimes attitude is helpful in obtaining rewards or avoiding the punishments. For example, a worker reveals that when he expresses positive attitude towards management and supervisor in front of his colleagues, they neglect him. But when he expresses negative attitude towards management and supervisor in front of his colleagues, he gains attention and sympathy of his colleagues. Thus, he finds that negative attitude towards top management is instrumental in gaining acceptance and avoiding rejection from his group members. Ego defensive function. Generally, people develop certain type of attitude because attitude helps them in maintaining or defending their self-images. For example, workers in an organization may feel threatened because of appointment of some new workers. These workers may develop prejudices against new workers that new workers are less qualified and less experienced. Such ego defensive attitude is formed to cope up with the feeling of threat and guilt. This attitude will never be changed unless or until the negative feeling is removed. Third function of the attitude is value expressive function. Attitudes reflect our value system. Such attitudes which reflect our values are very closely related to our self-concept. For example, a person whose value system is centralized towards equality in the organization will express a very positive attitude towards participative style of management, decentralized decision making, and etc. Knowledge function. Attitude can also serve as substitute for knowledge. In the absence of relevant information, attitudes help us in organizing and drawing inferences from the perceived object. Stereotyping is the perfect example of this. In the absence of knowledge towards a person, we use stereotyped attitude for judging the person. Dear students, every manager must have a deep understanding about the functions of attitude, because such an understanding can help the managers in two ways. Firstly, it helps in predicting how a person will behave in a particular situation. For example, if a supervisor is prejudiced against a worker, he is less likely to give him fair judgment in the process of performance appraisal. Knowledge about functions of the attitude may also help a manager in analyzing why a supervisor has developed such an attitude towards the employee. Secondly, it can help the manager in changing the attitude of another person. This can be done by changing the situations which lead to a particular type of attitude. Now we will discuss measurement of attitude. Studying attitude of an individual is very important to predict his behavior and reasons behind the behavior. Various methods have been developed to assess attitude of employees and executives in an organization. We are going to discuss few important methods in this module. The first method of measurement of attitude is Thurston Attitude Scale. This scale is comprised of a questionnaire which are filled up by the employees. This method of attitude scaling is widely used for measurement of attitude. The scaling procedure was developed before the wide use of computers, and therefore this method relied heavily on manual procedures. However, with the rapid introduction of computers in late 50s and early 60s, this scale procedures became less dominant. The second method of attitude measurement is Likert scale. This method of attitude measurement is relatively simpler than Thurston method and does not require involvement of judges in the procedure of scale construction. In this method, every statement which is included in the scale has 5 degrees of responses. These degrees may be strongly agree, agree, undecided, disagree, and strongly disagree. The individual responding to the scale is asked to state the extent to which he agrees or disagrees with the particular statement. Score is assigned to each response, and total scores of each statement are summed up to produce the overall score. This overall score indicates the respondent's attitude. The next method of measuring attitude is interviews. Interviews are the method of obtaining information about employees' attitude towards organization, job-related factors, working conditions, or other parameters. The interviews of workers should be taken by the representatives from outside the organization. The information obtained from the responses given by the employees is then analyzed to make a generalization about the employees. Dear students, now we will study some important attitudes related to work. An individual may develop hundreds of attitudes in his life towards any number of people, objects, or events. But in the study of organizational behavior, our prime focus is on individuals' work-related attitudes. These work-related attitudes generally express an employee's favorable or unfavorable evaluations about the work or work environment. Some important work-related attitudes are job satisfaction. Job satisfaction reflects a general attitude of an individual or general feeling of liking or disliking of an employee towards his job. A person who is highly satisfied from the job will express positive attitude towards the job, and the person who is highly dissatisfied will express negative attitude towards his job. For example, a person who is highly satisfied will tend to be regular, punctual, and perform well. Next work-related attitude is job involvement. Job involvement is the degree to which an individual identifies psychologically with his or her job and consider his or her perceived performance level important to self-worth. Employees with high level of job involvement identify themselves with their jobs very strongly and are generally very particular about their performance. High level of involvement leads to less absenteeism and lower turnover rates. Another concept which is very closely related to job involvement, is psychological empowerment. Psychological empowerment is the degree to which individuals believe that they have influence over their work environment, their capability, perceived autonomy, and meaningfulness of the job. Both job involvement and psychological empowerment are positively related to performance of the employee. Organizational commitment. Organizational commitment refers to the job attitude in which an employee identifies himself with a particular organization and its goals, and also wishes to maintain his membership in that organization. There is a positive relationship between organizational commitment and productivity. Organizational commitment is relative strength of an individual's identification with and involvement in a particular organization. Strongly committed employees tend to remain in the organization for a longer period of time than those who have lower commitment. There are three components of organizational commitment. First component is affective commitment. Affective commitment refers to emotional attachment of an employee with his organization and its values. For example, an employee may be emotionally attached to its organization because it is following environmental friendly practices. Second component of commitment is continuance commitment. Continuance commitment refers to an employee's perception about economic benefits of remaining in the organization. An employee may be committed to the organization because he is getting very good salary package which he would not get in any other organization. The third component is normative commitment. Normative commitment is when an employee feels obligation to remain in the organization for ethical or moral reasons. For example, an employee who is heading a new project in the organization may not leave the organization because he feels that it would be morally wrong if he leaves the organization without completing the project. Perceived organizational support. Perceived organizational support is the degree to which employees feel that their organization values their involvement in the organization and cares for their well being. Usually, employees perceive their organizations as supportive when the reward system in the organization is fair. They participate in the decision making and when they find their supervisors supportive to them. Individuals with strong perception of organizational support are more likely to express organizational citizenship behavior, lower levels of lethargy, and decreased rate of absenteeism. Employee engagement. Employee engagement is the term which refers to an individual's level of involvement, satisfaction, and interest for the job he is performing. Highly engaged employees feel a strong connection with their work and the company, whereas disengaged employees just invest their time in the organization but not energy and attention into their work. Research on employee engagement has pointed out that organizations whose employees had higher levels of employee engagement are more productive, earn more profits, have highly satisfied customers, experience lower levels of turnover, and face fewer accidents than other companies. So, students, let us now summarize. Attitude has been widely studied in organizational behavior because it is considered as an important variable of human behavior. Attitude has a psychological attribute that shapes the behavior. Work related attitudes of an individual tend to influence his behavior at work, such as absenteeism, performance, turnover, and organizational citizenship behavior. Attitudes are evaluative statements which are frequently used to describe people, events, and objects. These statements can be either favorable or unfavorable. Attitude reflects one's feelings towards particular object, event, or person. Therefore, we can say that attitude is a bent of mind or predisposition towards certain actions. It shows persistent tendency of an individual to act or behave in a particular manner towards some object. Attitude is comprised of three components: cognitive component, affective component, and behavioral component. Cognitive component of attitude is the description of beliefs and ideas about other persons. Affective component reflects the emotions or feelings of an individual towards a person, object, or events. Behavioral component includes the behavioral tendencies or intentions of an individual to act in a particular manner towards an object, event, or person. Thank you.